for his age. He is a professor of social work, sorry, assistant professor of social work at the University of Kentucky. Full, complete PhD, real PhD, heavy PhD, doing extraordinary research. And he's also the co-author on some research that my wife is working on Black financial psychology, which oddly enough does not has was not really being covered in academic journals. Well, we're fixing that. We're building our own institutions. We're getting it done ourselves because we got the people that can get it done. So, everybody, please give a digital welcome, digital round of applause to this extraordinary brother, Dr. Keith Watts. How you doing today, Dr. Watts?
Good. Happy to be here. I
All
just
right,
want to
all
share,
right.
of course, I've been a longtime member of the Black Business School, nearly almost a decade now. So this is it's an honor to actually be here talking to everybody in this amazing community.
Yeah, man. Well, the honor's all mine because you and I, when we talked the other day, I was telling you that when I first started kind of doing this sort of thing, and I had people that I was sort of watching and paying attention to, like Michael Eric Dyson and others. I wanted to do something similar to what they were doing, but I wanted to do it a little bit different. I said, I really want to see if we can reshape or expand, what it really means to be a scholar in the Black community, and like sort of get rid of some of the fear and really start talking about all the possibilities that can emerge if our best and brightest thinkers are spending time and energy pouring into our people,
Yeah.
right? And so you and I met, and you had been to a couple of conventions before, right? How many conventions have you been to?
Uh, I have been going. So since when was the convention in Charlotte? That was like 2022.
2022, yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, that was, and it just, yeah, it was amazing. And my parents, I'm actually in Charlotte right now, at my parents' house. I came to visit. I actually got here last night, so I
Oh
had
wow,
to travel. But
crazy.
the conference is in Charlotte that year, and so it was to me, it was a no-brainer. I was like, well, and I think I was still no, I had just graduated. I thought I was still a student, but the bottom line was like, I was like, well, I don't have to pay for a hotel, so it's like kind of, why would I not go? And when I tell you
Mm.
that it just changed my whole perspective about, what it means to see Black people working together and in a space of excellence, but not like performative excellence where people are, putting on a show and it's about marketing. And it really was clear that everybody that was at the All Black National Convention were genuinely interested in building our wealth as a community, individually, of course, and the things that we're all doing personally and our different endeavors, whether it be entrepreneurial or otherwise, or working with people who are starting businesses, right, and thinking about how can I connect with other Black people who are doing this work that maybe even if I don't want to necessarily be an entrepreneur myself or run a business myself, I can connect with Black people who are, and then I can leverage the skills that I have to support that, as opposed to doing what we typically do, which is looking for a job anywhere in the larger American community.
Right, right. Well, and I like that, and I like the fact that you brought that up because a lot of people think that, and I don't know where people get this from. They two big misconceptions that I constantly have to fight in terms of misinformation is one, there are people who believe that I have told Black people not to vote. And I've never told Black people not to vote. I always say vote for whoever you want. There's nothing wrong with freedom. I think they're not used to Black people having freedom or not being told what to do. But so many people use us and exploit us, and I'm like, no, just do what's best for you. The second thing is, the second misconception is that I've told every Black person they need to quit their job and start a business. I never said that. I've said that you should have the skill set to start a business if you have to, because sometimes the other man doesn't want to offer you a job, but you're still valuable, you're still worthy, you're still capable. Just because they don't see it doesn't make it not exist, right? And then also, every Black person, in my opinion, should own some piece of a business. Right, you should own some. Well, and it could really be something as simple as owning stock in Microsoft, right? It's not, it's not like, okay, me and my cousin started a liquor store. Now I work 12 hours a day selling beer or what. No, you ain't got to do all that. Just own something, right? And I think these are pretty simple messages. I'm still trying to figure out why some people think that that's so radical.
Yeah, and also what I like about what you're saying, and I think about this a lot, is these concepts are not mutually exclusive of being an investor versus being an entrepreneur. And you hit the nail on the head when it's like, if I own enough of a business that's making money and I position myself in a way that I'm getting access to the profits, whether it be interest off of the valuation of that stock going up, or whether it be dividends or however you look at it, doesn't that, by at least of a stretch, make me a business owner to a certain extent, right? I may not be in the driver's seat as far as managing the business, but if I have
Mhm.
a big stake in the company's profits, then I'm an owner.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
so, so I think about, I think that's important to stress, because I think that we have this kind of narrow view of like, okay, well, for me to be a business person or to be a boss, and I have to be the person who's in the driver's seat running the show and, in charge of the business. But there are so many ways that you can be a business owner without, and think about the skills that you have and where that best fits. So maybe I'm not somebody who wants to be the CEO, but I can be an investor, right? Or I can have skills that I can like lend to, if it's a business that I actually want to support, and I maybe want to go into partnership with them. Then it's like, okay, well, you're good at running these parts of the operation. I have these skills that I can offer, that I think when we work together, now we have something going. And I think that another thing that's important to think about too, especially this American individualistic culture, I think is really what hinders us from seeing the possibilities of what we can do. Because if you're always if you're coming from a frame of mind where you have to do it all by yourself, first of all, that's not how anybody builds wealth in America. That's never been how wealth was built. And I think that that is a myth that's fed to you to keep you from being able to actually build wealth, especially as Black people. And so we really embrace the communal kinship kind of culture that we've always had as people of African descent, and particularly as Black Americans, and the ways that we have depended upon each other to survive in the most destitute, circumstances. I think people would be not only find it as a solution, but also it would make it more exciting of an idea. You don't have to
Mm.
do it by yourself. You don't have to be
Mm.
isolated.
Mm. Isolate. That's really interesting because you do research on, if I'm not mistaken, on connectedness. Is
Or
that
belonging. Yes, belonging.
belonging? Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just so everybody knows, like I need y'all to, like, everybody can. I'm gonna ask y'all real quick. Do we have your attention? Dr. Keith Watts is here. He's he's on the faculty of the University of Kentucky. I'm gonna pause and ask you if I can have your attention. I mean, really, like if you're doing something else, I need you to stop for a minute and I need you to hear this because if he was a rapper releasing a number one album, everybody would be paying attention. But I need to know, do I have your attention? Because I'm about to tell y'all something that is absolutely beautiful and epic and extraordinary and should be celebrated by everyone. This brother just, if I'm not mistaken, you just had a paper, a research paper, an original high level research paper accepted in the Journal of the American Medical
So,
Association,
yes,
which
that's
is one of the leading journals, one of the leading academic journals on the planet, smartest thinkers on the earth. This brother just got a paper accepted there, and I can tell you as a fellow scholar that I was really impressed when he said, "Yeah, we just had a paper published in JAMA." I said, "Wait, the Journal of the American Medical Association? I'm not even in that field, and I know about JAMA." So this brother is jamming. He's in JAMA. So I hope everybody will take a minute and just let's just shower support on this because that's amazing, man.
yeah.
So what now? The paper you published in JAM and the other work is that was that connected to your research on belonging? Can you talk about your area of expertise?
Yeah, I've always looked at, it's actually kind of a trajectory that I've taken. And I think that people really, it's important that everybody hear this, because this applies to all the things we do in life. Just because you start off doing one thing doesn't mean that you're held, that you have to continue to do that, or that you can't expand what you do. So a lot of my research looked generally at, I was initially looking at mental health and well-being, like mental health, and thinking about the ways that our connections to the communities that we are a part of, how that supports our mental health and well-being. And I think, and that was something that I looked at really deeply, because of the fact that when you think about people like Black people, as being racial minorities, and also being positioned in America as being disenfranchised and excluded from the larger infrastructure that supports Americans, right, which is typically white Americans, then what happens is, where do you turn for the resources that you need, the access to support that you need, the financial resources, the emotional resources, the psychological, the material resources, right? So what I started to understand, I started to look at that concept as a sense of belonging, whether or not I feel a sense of belonging or that whether or not I belong to that group or that community is going to have a large impact on whether or not I have access to the supportive, forces and resources that are there. And then what I started to think about was, you know, it's not just mental health that this is impacting, but it's our health overall. And so that's why now I'm partnering with some people in the College of Medicine where we're looking at how these social connections and our access to our social communities are impacting our health. So not just thinking mental health, but your actual physical health. And so that
Mm,
paper that we published, we were looking at this, and now this one it's interesting because we looked at educational attainment. And then I think it's important because we're talking about financial literacy a lot in this group. But basically, the paper, what we did in that study was we wanted to understand the associations that exist between your educational attainment and allostatic load, which is a measure of the chronic psychological stress that you experience. And so you thinking about for Black people, we talk all the time about, microaggressions and like all post-traumatic slave syndrome, and also just thinking about how this and allostatic load is tied to this idea of minority stress, which is that in addition to the everyday stresses that you experience in general as a person in this society, you being a racial minority has an additive effect on the additional kind of stresses that you have to deal with every day that someone who isn't a racial minority doesn't have to worry about, it doesn't have to deal with. So that thinks about, that talks about the microaggressions you experience at work where people don't think that you're as competent, or the ways in which that maybe, your progress, your efforts are not valued the same way as maybe your white colleague, right? Or thinking about the ways that people you get looked over for promotions at work, or even the way that people may talk to you in a way that feels belittling, or as if, I know you don't understand this, but X, Y, and Z. And
yeah.
so, you know what I mean? And so, and all of
Right.
that builds up, and that actually creates physiological stress in your body that actually wears down in your body. And so that leads
Mhm.
to a lot of the research has linked this allostatic load, right, due to the stress that you experience as a minority, racial minority, as things like hypertension and diabetes and cancer. And so I know that one of the things that we talk about a lot is this the differential that exists between people who are highly educated, or basically like formal education, and whether or not that is connected to your overall health. And so what we found is that there is a strong association between your high chronic stress, so if you have high allostatic load, and lower educational attainment on cancer mortality. But what we found
Mm.
particularly that there was a four-fold increased risk of cancer mortality for men who have low compared to men who have low allostatic load in a college degree. So basically, the way you look
Mm.
at it is for men who have low allostatic load and also a college degree, you are four times less likely to die of cancer mortality.
So
Um,
you're saying, okay, so just so I can make sure I understand,
yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
saying that you're less likely to die from cancer if you have less uh of that stress and microaggression stuff like that, and then a little more education. Is that what that load
And
is?
so
Like,
and
describe
so
that load.
Yeah, so basically what it's basically saying is that for folks who have less stress and have higher formal education, you are less likely to die of cancer, and a fourfold time less likely, right? Um, and
Whew.
why that's important to me is because, I actually partner with other folks. So that wasn't a study that I designed, came up with the idea of, but I wanted to participate in that because I thought it speaks again to this connection between the stressors that we experience and our actual physical health.
Mm.
Um, and what was interesting in the study is that Black men are 50 times less likely than white men, right, to have seen a physician in the past year, which can help explain why higher education did not translate to lower cancer mortality rate for these men. But also, it's really interesting, right? And then there were some other key findings we had that I don't have it in front of me right now. But the bottom line is that you think about the access to education, you think about that being linked to our access to financial resources. And then you connect that to the idea of also being a Black person. Not even this study was looking at men, but even just even being a Black person, all of the allostatic load that's building up, in your body, which is again this accumulative stress, and how that has these physiological impacts in your body, and how that's linked to like a fourfold increase in cancer mortality. And so why that's important is because if you have connection to a community that can support you, one, you are going to be more likely to actually have access to formal education. We talk about wealth building, right? Like if you have parents who are proactive in planning on putting aside money and investing for you when you're young, having options to get formal education. But I don't think that that is just necessarily the final point there, because your ability to get formal education like a college degree, it also just reflective of the access to resources you have in general, right? So while this wasn't looked at in this study, I think that there's a link here in thinking about how for folks who have college degrees, there are likely also folks who just have access to money. So while this study looked at educational attainment and how they relate to your cancer mortality, I'm willing to bet that there's also just a connection there as far as your socioeconomic status and your
Mm.
likelihood to die from cancer, right? Because if I have access to a college degree, that means I also have access to a lot of other support systems likely and resources. So I don't want to keep going on that tangent, but
No,
um
that's
go
a great
ahead.
tangent. That's I'm taking notes here. Um, So, I'll summarize. I can't. I mean, your work was detailed and exhaustive. I can only imagine. I published a few times myself, and I know what it's like digging through the weeds. And you're like,
Oh
yeah, and
no.
then we found this effect and that effect. You just switch around the bit. I get, man.
Mhm.
I love it, and I want everybody to just hopefully you'll appreciate how much work it took for him to pull this off, and that's why I wanted to make sure that everybody knows that this is a big deal. And this really helps our people, right? And these are things that a lot of you probably suspected or had some idea of, but I'll summarize it in my way, and then I'll let Dr. Watts kind of take us more in that direction of connectedness and things like that. But what it sounds to me like you're discussing with the overarching effect of connectedness being critical in terms of getting the things you need, right?
Yes.
And I got some stats I want to share with everybody just to kind of talk about that. This is why things like family and community and all that stuff, even coming to class every morning, or coming to the convention, I've had people talk about how it just really it was so healing to be at the All Black National Convention where you're being hugged by people that are rooting for you and want to see you win and not judging you, because you're black and you want to fix things and make things better. But then there's also you mentioned going to the doctor. And these are things, some of these things I had implemented in my life, and I just did it more so instinctually as opposed to having like the scientific research to back everything up. But number one, I noticed a lot of us men, we don't go to the doctor. There's another brother, Dr. Charles Rogers, who I'm going to bring in at some point as well. He is one of the world's leading experts. I think he's at University of Washington or somewhere. I got to double check, but he's one of the world's leading experts on black men and colon cancer. And he talks about the fact that black men, there's an epidemic happening with black men dying from colon cancer. And my mother just died from colon cancer, so it affects women too. And he was sort of talking about some of these things that you talk about. And then, so going to that doctor and getting those checkups is very important. Two, stress. Keeping your peace, staying away from places that where you're not wanted, you're not being respected, you're being mistreated. And I think some of us just believe that we're supposed to be like those, that story about the frog in the boiling water. Like
Yeah.
we really see ourselves as like, okay, I'm supposed to be the frog in the boiling water. Every day I'm supposed to go into a place where I'm hated, disrespected, disliked, mistreated, and everything else. And I'm just supposed to adjust to it because that comes with being black. Well, it also comes with early death, apparently. And I hate saying it that way, but that's the most honest way I can say it. You talk about education, and when I think about education, I also think about knowledge, which sometimes may or not be the same as formal education, right? I would say education that would link to your environment in the sense that it seems to me that if I have, for example, if I have more education on financial literacy and how to start a business and how to succeed economically, then I have the skill set to get myself out of tough spots. I can create options for myself. There's that word options, right? And options are the cousin of freedom. So because I have educated myself on the right things, I can get out of those situations that stress me out. And then I'm also going to the doctor, getting my checkups, getting access to money, access to the to community, and overall, I've enhanced my quality of life. Uh, would you tell me about that summary I just made, and let me know what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, well, what stuck out to me, a key thing that stuck out to me, of course, is the part about you having options when you are like it's a chain effect. If you don't feel like you have any financial freedom or that you have to take this job because otherwise I would not have any money, I would have nowhere to turn, that already is a stressful situation. And I don't care what background you come from. Anybody who's in a situation where they feel like if I was to lose my job tomorrow, I don't know how I would pay my bills, how I would support myself. That's already a stressful place to be in. But then you compound that with being a black person who is now you're hyper vigilant about of whether or not you're going to be able to keep your job because every day feels like there's a chance that I might be fired today, right? Or especially if I'm experiencing if I have negative experiences with the people I'm working with that I know is tied to the fact that I'm black. I already feel I'm always in this very it feels precarious, like I'm in this very on eggshells at all times. And then you take that and think about how, what does that do to your mental health when you're like, I don't actually know if I'm going to have this job 2 months from now, but I have a 12-month lease. I have children I have to take care of, right? I have bills I have to pay. So, yeah, we know that story. But what I think is important to focus on is the converse. When you do have a pool, some type of money put aside, when you do have something that you can rely on, while life is stressful and while if any type of work or job is gonna come with the stressors, it feels very different when you don't feel stuck. I remember I talk about this a lot with my friends. One of the things that has kind of helped my mental health and my well-being, and therefore my physical health, because it's all connected, right? I love it. It's important that we take a holistic approach. Think about the ways that I tell people all the time. If I get excited or nervous, my heart starts to beat faster, right? Like, or if you get goosebumps because something scares you or whatever, like these are examples of how what's happening cognitively and psychologically are always immediately impacting your body. So we're not even talking about the long-term damage that stress can have over time if you constantly being in this hyper vigilant, hyper stressed out state all the time. That's gonna obviously that's the allostatic load piece where that wears your body down. If you think of your body as a machine, that constant beating, it's gonna break you down. But what I going back to what I was saying, which has really helped my mental health a lot, and I think about this a lot when I'm working with people and thinking about solutions or things they can do to just to improve their mental health is I always felt like I had options, and part of that I think is important is believing that you can do something else, believing that there's more that you can do, right? I never felt like I was stuck. When I was going through school, it was like, okay, well, I'm doing this, but like I don't have to do this, right? And that always helped me feel like I'm taking chances. I'm studying this. Like when I did my PhD program, I remember we talked about this, how there are moments when I was like, I wanted to cry. And I was like, I already have a master's degree. Like, what am I putting myself through this for? Like, I don't have, you start talking to yourself like, I don't have to do this. And while I persevered and pushed through anyway because I had bigger goals, there is something that feels good about the fact that you're like, well, I don't have to do this, right? And then when you think about the fact that thanks to you, I have been investing for since in my mid 20s, and I'm 34 now. And so I also think about the case of like for the last at least like 5 years, if not more, I've never felt like I would be down and out if I had lost a job. Like, and I appreciate the position I have now. I love the work that I'm able to do as a faculty member of the University of Kentucky. And I love particularly that I'm able to leverage the skills and the expertise I have to actually be able to support the community that I care about and communities that I serve. Um, but also, with all due deference, if I was to be fired today, I would be okay. And that's not a flex. That's an important like statement to make so that people understand. It really does change the physiological experience I have. When I get stressed out about challenges at work, I'm not worried about whether or not I'm not freaking out because I'm worried about am I gonna lose my livelihood. I'm more interested in just addressing that challenge. And I could even have conversations with myself about, well, is this something I still want to do? Because I have the choice. it's not, I'm not a quitter. That's how I made it through that PhD program, right? Like I stick to my goals and I'm very tenacious about that. So if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do my very best to see it through. But also, if I come to a determination that I'm in a toxic work environment or a toxic group of people, like even thinking about my colleagues, there have been partnerships I've had with people where we were working on a project or a paper, and this only happened once, but I was still a student. I was a PhD student, and there was a faculty member who was bullying not just me, but also one of my mentors who was a faculty member, and I was a PhD student. And I remember sending out an email expressing very clearly how over the past year I've seen nothing but this negative behavior from you. I've sat by quietly and not said anything because I'm a student. I want to be respectful of your position, blah blah blah. But I just want to be clear to everybody in this partnership that after this paper is published, I want no more contact with any of you unless it's about this publication or about this project. Do not reach out to me again. I don't want any further communication. And I could do that because I could make decisions about what I will and will not engage with and who I will and will not engage and work with. I wasn't stuck.
Mm, wow, that's very bold. That's a,
Sometimes
wow.
I get sometimes
Man,
I
you
do
can't be
stuff
out
and
here
then
acting like Boyce Watkins, man. That's gonna get you in trouble, okay? Because that's the type of stuff I did, man. I did the same. One day, when we're talking, I'll tell you about my shenanigans in my department,
yes.
man. I mean, if I was them, I'd have wanted to get rid of me too. But I love that. I love what you're saying um, about the importance of just having those options. And you said this is not a flex, and I agree, it's not a flex, it's a necessity. It's a necessity, right? Dr. Watts, I think that there are so many of us who get lured into this false sense of complacency, and they don't realize how unsafe you are economically when you're black in this country, right? Sure, we understand, maybe how unsafe we might be dealing with the police, things like that. But I can tell you the honest God truth. I've been pulled over many times by cops. Never once was I shot or beaten by a cop. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I
Man,
have been beat.
I've been let go. I've been let go of warnings so many times. I'm talking about
Right. So again, it's not to belittle that threat, but we're
yes, of
hypersensitive to
course.
that threat, but we're
Yes.
not hypersensitive to what happens when you're kind of enslaved by this workspace. I know I ain't never been beat by a cop, but I've definitely been beaten by my boss. Right? I've been beaten down by a job. And what's also interesting here too is like banks have this measure of financial stability that's related to a concept called matching, duration matching, risk matching, things like that. And one of the things I want everybody to kind of think about is this. And then I want to lay some stats out for you, Dr. Watson. I want to see what your thoughts are about this because I want to go back to what you were saying about belonging, and it takes me to like George Fraser and how he talks about connecting and networking, things like that. And so anyway, with here's one thing I want everybody to understand. If you want to understand how in danger you are if you are black working for people who don't necessarily have your best interests at heart, and you're also living paycheck to paycheck. Think about it like this. If you pay rent, then you're guaranteed to have to pay your rent. There's no month where your landlord says, I'll give you 3 months. You ain't got to pay for that. That's not going to happen. The rent must be guaranteed. The card note must be guaranteed. The cell phone bill must be guaranteed. The kids are guaranteed to need to eat. All that's guaranteed, guaranteed, guaranteed. But on the other side, when you look at your stream of income that is going to fulfill these obligations, I want to ask y'all this: is that job guaranteed? Is it is it guaranteed? Like, are you like the NFL players who get $10 million in guaranteed money when you sign your contract, right? What is that? So what has to happen, and this relates to the banking concept, is when they measure the stability of a bank and the risk exposure, they look at your revenue sources and they look at your expenses, and they say, okay, do they match? So here you got all these guaranteed expenses, but you don't have a guaranteed source of revenue. That means you are in economic danger because if this side shuts down, then this whole other side becomes highly unstable. Then you don't have the job, so you can't pay the rent, you can't pay the card note, you can't pay whatever. So what protects you is creating options and diversification, meaning you have your savings, you have your investments, you have your real estate, you have your multiple streams of income. And this is not, it's Dr. Watt said, it's not a flex, it's a responsibility, it's a requirement. Right. And so Dr. Watts, I love the fact also that you mentioned how, even though you're not, you're in social work like my wife,
Yeah.
and most of the social workers I meet are not really sitting around talking about money all day and investments and stock markets and everything. In fact, some of them, I joke with my wife, I said, some of y'all act like y'all hate people that got money. I said, but you all, I told my wife, I said, me and your ex-husband both have money. So I said, the reason
There's
you ain't got to
something
think
there.
about money is because you're smart enough to marry men who do think about money. But still, though, but I understand, like, I completely respect the field because we need our social workers, we need our social work scholars, especially when you talk about the Black experience. I know I can't think of a single thing I've ever done in terms of whether it's teaching or coaching kids or whatever, where I didn't feel like I was kind of like a part-time social worker. I had to be sensitive to social issues, right? And so, with that being said, let's go back to what you were saying about belonging and
Yeah.
how important that is for us. What have you noticed in terms of your research specifically as it relates to our people, in terms of how not belonging to the things we want to belong to, how that can affect us?
Um, so I usually take a strengths-based approach. So I try not to focus too much on what the deficits are, but rather
Okay.
how we can benefit. But I will
Okay.
say that that lack of belonging is tied to this idea of isolation, right? You feel isolated, and when you feel, and to your point, everything is, we live in a capitalistic society, so everything is connected to money. And so when you're, as a Black person, you're isolated and you don't feel that you have a connection to a support system, that leaves you vulnerable to everything. And I know we talked about, for example, the idea of like taking a job maybe that you would not have taken otherwise because you don't have a choice. I'm also thinking about leaving you vulnerable to maybe getting in relationships that like, whether it be romantic relationships or even relationships with friendships with people who are doing things that maybe are not safe. But the alternative is, I don't have any other community. I don't have any other access to resources, right? So on an individual level, we oftentimes will take risky. I think about it in the same way as like investing, right? Taking it back to money. When you're a new investor and you're trying to build your account, because I've been a lot of classes with the Black Business School, whether it be about like trading, forex trading, option trading. One of the things that really became clear to me is you take more risk when you don't have a capital base, when you don't have already a set support, if you will, a cushion. So it's like, in the same way how you're willing to take more risk when you're trying to build your capital base as a new investor, because I have to do this quick, and I have to take risks because I have nothing else to go with. Whereas somebody who has a lot of capital, I can take slow, measured, thought out approaches to what my next step is, what my next decision will be, because I don't have to take that risk if I don't want to. I have options. And so,
Mm,
and I even thinking about, I'll bring it back to me as an example. I have a PhD in social work. Bottom line, I have a PhD, right? I went to undergrad. I got a master's, so a bachelor's, master's, and PhD. But I tell people all the time, I give my parents all of the blessings, and I give them all of the honor, because I was able to live with my parents until I was 27 years old. And it wasn't until I started my PhD program that's when I finally went and I started living on my own in an apartment because I moved to a different city. But me being able to have options, like being like, I
mm,
didn't have to put myself in a desperate situation because I needed housing, or I didn't have to take on the first job that was available to me because I had to pay my bills because I was by myself. This idea of having, and also psychologically, I knew that I still had people I could depend on back home. So I
mm,
never, while I might have been out in the world by myself, as far as being in spaces surrounded by people who may not look like me and who may not have my best interest at mind and at heart, rather, I was never alone. I never walked through this world feeling like I was by myself. And so not only did it allow me to take less risky decisions, but it also allowed me psychologically not to have to be exposed to the how that wears you down of feeling I'm over here struggling through a PhD program. I'm making $25,000 a year from this program. You know, that's which is a lot for a program to give a PhD student, but that was all of my income. So I'm 27 years
Mhm.
old, making $25,000 a year, trying to convince myself that it's worth it to get this PhD. But also, I was always going back to my like COVID hit, for example, and I was halfway through my PhD program where my parents lived in Charlotte, I lived in Richmond, Virginia, and I would just come back home sometimes for weeks at a time. So it was like, you know, I had a support system where even the entire time I lived in another city, I came back home at least once a month, if not once every 2 months. So I always had that support system. Plus, while I was in Richmond, I quickly started connecting with the different groups of the black groups that were there. So like I became a member of the Richmond Association of Black Social Workers. At the time, you know, it was in vogue for universities to have like Black Lives Matter, you know, Black Lives Matter collectives and things like that was in vogue anywhere in the United States. So I became a member of those types of experiences. Actually, I will say this, and I think it's important for people to hear this. I had a better experience than all of my I was the only person in my cohort, my PhD cohort who wasn't white. So not just the only
Mm.
black person. It was four of us who came into my PhD program. I was the only person who wasn't white. I was obviously I'm a black man. But I had a better experience because within the first year, the three, four faculty members that were black rallied around me and pulled me into their group. So I'm in group chats with black faculty members. They're faculty, they already have PhDs, and I'm in group chats with them where they're like, "Oh, we're having to get together. We're going to have dinner. We're going to have lunch. Blah 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 blah." Like, and also they're being supportive of me emotionally, right? Also, there are times when I had one of the faculty members, Nicole. She would invite me over to come eat food at her house. She would cook dinner and be like, "I know you only make it 25K." You know, da 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 da. Like, so, you know, if you ever want to come over and have dinner, that you know, another member Jamie, she used to meet me when I was working on my dissertation. This is a black woman. She would meet with me sometimes at coffee shops up until 11 o'clock at night because she was a methodologist on my dissertation, so she was good with stats and research methods. So there are times when she would sit late at night in a coffee shop where she didn't have to be there, but she would find work that she needed to do on her computer so that she could be there with me as I was working through the challenges of trying to figure out what I was doing with this PhD project dissertation, da 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 da. So I hope that at least for the people listening really expresses the importance of making sure that you connect to the other black people that are around you. I was in a brand new city where I didn't know anybody, but because I quickly found ways to connect to the organizations or associations of black people that existed, I I dare say I had a better experience than my white colleagues in one of the most grueling programs ever in my life.
Mm. Well, connection does matter, and everybody who just came in, I'm talking to Dr. Keith Watts, and he's an assistant professor of social work at the University of Kentucky. And so, when you talk about connection, I also think about both sides of that, right? The benefits of connection. A lot of times, being connected or being a part of something or being belonging to something, it can take something that's really hard to do and make it very easy. And that's
Yes.
why I tell everyone who's listening, I would say start where you are. Uh, belong deeper with your family. Get together on those family business conversations on Zoom and just connect there. Start there, and then find other places you can belong. Because not only are there benefits to belonging, but also when you look at the other side of that, the consequences of not belonging. I think about, I think about Dr. Watts. I think about like even in domestic violence situations,
Mhm.
a lot of times you'll hear where the abuser will
Disconnect them,
deliberately
disconnect them
extract
from
you
their family.
from groups that you belong to, right? They'll move you away from your family and disconnect you from your friends. Why? Well, because they know that you're weaker and more vulnerable that way. And so in many cases, you see a lot of exploitation that can happen when people are divided. And I think that's what happens to our community. I think that that's why they're okay with the black family breaking down. It's like, okay, if this young black man has no family, then we become his family, right? He has to come work for us. He has to come serve us because he has nobody out there that has his back. I'm going to mention a couple of statistics to you, and I just would like to get your thoughts on this. And by the way, everybody, if you, I want to mention too, if you're not on the text list for this class We meet every morning at 10 a.m. Just text the word morning on your phone to the phone number 87948. So text morning to 87948. And also tonight we're going to do Powernomics training. I'll send out a link for everybody who wants to join us. We're reading Dr. Claude Anderson books. And I just found out that Dr. Anderson's new film about his life is actually going to be shown at the Invest Fest, which made me really happy. And so a lot of people are getting the message on Black economics, and this is something that's really important for our people. All right, so according to the Harvard Business Review, they said people who have networks earn 50% more money. Surprise, surprise. Two, 85% of jobs are filled via personal connections, which surprise, surprise, we know how that works, right? Next, married Black couples have 2 to 3 times more wealth than single Black adults. So if you are struggling financially and you're not connected relationship wise to someone that can back you up, that might be part of the reason why. Just saying. Cooperative economics boosts survival by 60% during economic downturns. So if you are part of some sort of economic cooperative, then you are more likely to survive during a downturn. What else? Social isolation increases poverty risk by 34%. This is according to the University of Chicago. That's where my wife studied social work, Dr. Watts. She got her master's at Chicago, and then she got her doctorate at Florida State. Uh, let's see here. Black business owners with mentors. This, like Dr. Watts, he's a professor with mentors, but mentors matter. Mentors generate 2.5 times higher revenue. So getting a mentor is a part of the educational process that really makes a difference. Also, last but not least, and I'd like to get your thoughts on any of these stats that jumped out at you, Dr. Watts. Disconnected youth are 70% more likely to end up economically insecure. So youth without community support or positive social ties are far more likely to face joblessness, housing instability, and criminal justice entanglement, aka prison, all of which can crush your future wealth and opportunities. Dr. Watts, your thoughts?
Well, I'll just go back again briefly to that last stat. If you have to take more risk, if you don't have resources, and so when we see our
Mm,
Black youth disproportionately in the criminal justice system, obviously there's a lot of systematic reasons why it's structured to capture them and trap them in it at a very young age. But also, you use this expression all the time. We're taking what is it? Taking penitentiary chances.
penitentiary chances?
Penitentiary chances, exactly, right? Like, because you don't really have anywhere else to go. But
Mm,
I know, because we've been talking for a while, I was thinking about the community aspect of some of the stats you brought up. And I want to stress to people that I forgot to mention a key kind of distinction about belonging versus like saying being connect, like social support, or being connected to a group of people, is that there's an expectation of a positive relationship, that a positive connection to this individual or this group. It's usually a group, but sometimes you can refer to as individuals belonging. But it's a sustained positive relationship that you think will last indefinitely. So you think, you assume that this relationship is going to endure. But also, it's this piece about you feeling that you're an active participant in either the development of this group of community or the maintenance and sustenance of this group. So what really gives people a sense of belonging is not just that I'm included or that I feel like I'm a part of this group, but also that I feel that an integral part of this group staying, maintaining, sustaining is my contributions.
mm,
So I think that that's something that really goes back into,
mm,
not only does it actually benefit you as an individual by feeling you belong, but also it has the reciprocal, or the broader benefits of everybody involved is benefiting from each other, because we're all working to support each other, and therefore while we're all individually getting that sense of belongingness, we're also working towards achieving the goals, whatever it is that we have all decided we want to achieve, whatever the mission is for this group, even if it's just to take care of each other. And the way
mm,
I think about that is, you brought this up, and one of the things you said, but I want to stress this. I got my position at the University of Kentucky largely because of a colleague of mine who we still publish to this day. And her name is Dr. Shondea Thrasher. She's at Louisiana State University, assistant professor as well. We actually were on a job market together. But I met her when in my PhD program, the second year. The University of Michigan had this training that they did for PhD students. So we applied and we both wound up going. So I met her. She's a Black woman. We stayed in contact. And I have to also give props. Black women are really good about this. I mean, my success in academia in general has been tied so much. I talked about, Nicole and Dr. Nicole Corley, Dr. Jamie Cage, how these are Black women who really came around. Dr. Stephanie Ordera, they all kind of swarmed around me and took care of me and swooped down from the moment I got to Virginia Commonwealth University. But
Wow.
Dr. Thrasher, we met at the University of Michigan at this summer training program, and we stayed in contact. And so, because I'm in a R1 institution, research is a whole part of our training, a big part of it. So I was going to conferences every year, presenting research for like my mentors and their work and being a research assistant. But she was also going too. So every time we would go to like the Society for Social Work and Research or the Council for Social Work Education annual conferences, she would always text me and be like, "Hey, bro, you're here. Hey, bro, you're here." So we would always she would make sure to like to link up. Well, fast forward to us being on the job market together. She was at the University of Kentucky getting her PhD, and she texts me, and this was like I think September because it was right around my mother's birthday. I remember this, and she said, "Hey, you interested in? Would you be interested in living in Kentucky?" And this was 2020, so this was in the middle of the pandemic where there was like six faculty positions open, and she connected me to the dean of the College of Social Work, who's also a Black man. And so, long story short, we won't get into all the details, but just by, me being connected to this community of Black people, I was the only person out of the, again, it was four of us in my PhD program. Three were white people, right? Two white women and one white man, and then it was me as a Black man. I'm the only person out of the four of us who actually got a faculty position that year because again,
Wow.
it was
So
the middle. Go ahead.
that's amazing. That's amazing because what I'm hearing is you all see, we always believe that there's only one type of privilege and that's white privilege. But we don't understand that we have the capacity through our heart and our focus and our commitment and our love to create black privilege. You can manufacture black privilege. And what I'm seeing is that you manufacture black privilege by connecting and caring about each other and looking out for each other. And that actually allowed you to get an opportunity that non-black people wouldn't
Yes.
have been eligible
Did
for,
not get
right?
in this case. Did not
Yeah.
get. And I want to also add, not to cut you off, but the piece about the belonging and contributing to this day, I still put her on my research papers. I mean, we work together. Don't be clear. I'm not just giving it to her, but I have right now three research papers under review. I have a lot under review, but three of the research papers that where I'm first author, I have her included as a second author. So if there's whether there's only two of us or whether there's five of us on that paper, I always reach out to her and be like, "So I'm doing this research, blah blah blah. Do you want to be in this paper?" So we are still contributing to each other's success now, as in we're both going up for tenure next year. So not only did we, oh, and then also when we were working on our dissertations, we had actually planned twice. We had got like these cabins and like I was living in Richmond, Virginia, and she was in Kentucky. So we would try to find like midway points where we could just get like an Airbnb cabin where we did dissertation retreats, where we would spend a week where we would get away from everybody else. She's married, so she got away from her husband. I got away from all the social everything. Nobody can reach me, ask me to go out tonight, ask me to da da da. It was like we just isolated ourselves from everyone else, and we worked on our dissertation together. I helped her with a lot of the piece, like the theoretical and philosophical pieces of the writing, and she had a lot more experience with like because I had to do like a path analysis and using like M plus modeling statistical software. So she had a lot of training. Like she actually went to formal trainings for that. So she helped me with that part, and I learned a lot. To this day, I'm still because of the things I learned from her, I'm still using. But also I helped her as well with some of her methodological stuff, but a lot of the theory and whatnot. But fast forward to 20, that was in 2020. Fast forward to 2025. Again, I have three papers under review where I have her as my co-author, and I'm the first author. So it's not just as simple, taking advantage of people or being like, oh, where's the black people in the space that can help me out, and they're running off. It's about building that sense of community and then sticking with each other and continuing to build it and work together.
Reciprocity.
Yes.
Reciprocity. Yeah. I love that. It's actually one of the commandments in my book, The Ten Commandments of Black Economic Power. I talk about being an asset to your family and the concept of reciprocity and understanding that when you are part of a collective, you have a responsibility. There's a code of conduct. It says, look, I'm not just asking, I'm not here to just have my hand out. A lot of us in this room, have relatives that only show up when they want something from you, but never show up to offer anything, right? And that's inappropriate behavior. That's what Dr. Anderson would call that. And so the reciprocity is beneficial because what it says is that I'm looking out for you by making sure that when I have resources and I have a choice about where to give those resources, I'm not running across the street to his business. I'm gonna go across the street to your business. Right? I'm not looking out for this person over here. I'm looking out for the people that are in my circle, so that at some point they will also return that favor. That's how I protect myself. I invest in you, and I want everybody to understand that concept because that's as fundamental as it gets. That's the best investing lesson I could ever give you. And it starts with not just investing in with money. I'm talking about investing in people. Raising your kids is part of that process too. When you have people that consider kids a burden, like, oh, I got babies, mamas, and my kids, they get on my nerves. Well, guess what? The more you pour into those little suckers that are getting on your nerves in 2025, the more they're going to show up for you in 2055. But if
Yeah.
you don't pour into them in 2025, then in 2035 or 45, 55, whatever, when you in the nursing home, they will not come see you.
I'm
They
not
will
gonna
not
come
come to
see
change your diapers. They will not come to help you out, right? They're gonna say, "Who's that? Who's that old man in the psych ward who doesn't have anybody come to visit him? He's had dementia and doesn't know who he is, and he doesn't. We said it says he has children, but none of his children ever want to come see him. Well, unfortunately, in many cases, that is a culmination. That situation is a culmination of choices he made when he was young and healthy, and could have been pouring into other people. So pour in, find your people. I think Dr. Watts would agree with me on this. Find your people and pour into those people, but pour into people that are going to pour back into you, and then it becomes a nice economy. You create an economy of love and support. And that story you told about the sister hooking you up with the job, that makes me think about a time where we manufactured some black privilege. Me and my wife were trying to buy a property in Chicago, and there was a real estate agent who was black who was kind of working with us and everything. And in this building, almost all the buildings are owned by people that live in China. Nothing against the Asian community, but that was just a fact. And whenever a building or part one of the units would become available, they would jump on it and grab it. And so we were, going through the motions, and she called us up and said, "Hey, you better make a move
right
quick
now.
because these offers are coming in, and I'm just looking out. I'm just letting you know like what's going on." So me and my
My
wife were like, "Okay,
cousin,
let's
my
get on
cousin's
it."
about to buy the next one.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so that, so really, I think that is, I'm empowered by your conversation about the importance of belonging, because it goes, it's in contrast to the deficit model where we go through life feeling sad because we feel like we don't belong to anything. We're sad because we don't have a seat at the table. Well, no, God built you a table. Your family's got a table. You just haven't invested in that table, and so you feel locked out because you're trying to get at his table when you got a table. Build yours, right? So I want to say, Dr. Watts, it was an honor to have you, man. Did you have any parting thoughts before we bounce out?
Actually, the one thing I will say too is I what I love about this conversation, and I hope folks take this away too, is what I talked about today is investment. And I think that sometimes we have this negative view of it being like capitalistic and evil to think about and use terms like investments and partnerships and but really if we see the monetary system as an extension of our social systems and not the other way around, I think that that would help people really feel more comfortable of talking about it. When you talked about, for example, of investing in youth, because you may not have used that word, but if you're investing in the youth, and you get a return on that investment when they're adults and you're an older adult and they actually have the capacity to do things to help you out or to be there to support you in ways that no, they can't do that as a 2-year old. They're completely dependent upon you, but you invest in that person. And it doesn't, and I also want to remind folks too that the communal approach is important because it doesn't have to be your biological children, right? Whether it be an adopted child, whether it be the child of someone, a partner that you meet, and then you become a step parent, whether it be your nephews and nieces. Like I don't have any children of my own, but I have a nephew who's 6 months older than me, so I've been an uncle my entire life. And what's been really good is that for even for my nephews and nieces who are younger than me now, like they know me as the uncle who is big about like financial literacy and about, making money moves and investing and things like that. So it is such a blessing for me to know that they can come to me and I can invest in them in that way and know that they're going to get good quality information from someone who actually cares about them and who's not going to lead them astray or try to trick them out of their money or take advantage. But also,
Mhm.
I also recognize that at some point in time, I might have to turn to them. And can you? I may be in nursing home, I may be sick, and whatever. Look out for Uncle Keith. Like
There you
you know what
go.
I mean. So it doesn't when we think about that's what I'm thinking about here. When we talk about belonging and supporting each other and this communal approach and this community approach to financial well-being, remember that all of these concepts, these economic concepts, you can just see parallels in the social relationships that we have. So if we understand that our relationships are investments and get past this kind of hang up of seeing it as the devil or being tainted with negativity, it's real. Whether you use the language of economics or not, it is what's happening. You like me, I grew up at a household where both of my parents were gainfully employed. I've never seen my parents ever once lose their job. They've never been fired from a job. And what does that do to me psychologically? Number one, to understand that like it's possible to keep your career or to do to progress in life and not be in this hyper vigilant state of always being vulnerable. I never even knew that was a thing because of my parents, but it's an investment because I'm at my parents' house right now. My parents are in their, late 60s and 70s. So it's all of that, I lived with my parents until I was 27. I was able to get the degrees, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have to pay for housing and all of that. But on the flip side now, Dr. Watts is their son. And so I come to visit them at least once a month. Like I'm here to take care of them. My father had surgery at the beginning of this year, heart surgery, and I was able to come into town and be here while he was in the hospital, seeing him every day, but also be here with my mother while she's at home, scared out of her mind of is my husband going to wake up after that surgery and come off that table tomorrow, right? As an example. So, understand that these financial concepts are directly related to our actual human behaviors. And if we started to see our relationships with each other as investments and also as financial decisions, I think it would demystify so much of it, and also it would take this dark cloud off of away from how people see money and finance and investing and see it actually is life. It's human life. It
Yes.
is a part of human life. You're making informed decisions or not. Either you're making conscious or unconscious decisions about how you invest your time, your energy, your resources. You're always making investment decisions. So it behooves us to recognize that and then put yourself in the driver's seat where you can make conscious, intentional decisions about how I'm investing my life force. And
Yes. Well, and I love that, and I agree with you. I think that I want everybody to know that most of your investments will not involve money. Most of your investments will involve people. It'll involve time. It'll involve love, things like that. And it does eventually get back around to money. If you don't make the right investments when it comes to your time, your energy, your love, the people around you, then that will affect your finances. It's all a system. It's all connected. So I would encourage you, if you don't have any money, just know you can still be rich without money. Some people are so poor that all they have is money. Don't be one of those people, right? So thank you, Dr. Watts, for your time. It was great to speak with you. Dr. Watts is on the faculty at the University of Kentucky in the Department of Social Work. He's one of the most outstanding scholars in the country, and I'm proud that he's part of the B1 community. I was really happy when he told me he stacked a little bit of a bankroll from all the investing that he's been doing since he's been part of this space for a very long time. And I know a lot of you are out there doing extraordinary things as well. And hopefully I'll get to meet you as well. And I can just say I was truly thrilled to get a chance to speak with your brother. And also everyone should know Dr. Watts is assisting my wife, Dr. Alicia, with original academic research on Black financial psychology. This is not covered in academic journals. They have not, like Michael Jackson when he used to say they don't really care about us, but it's okay though because we care about us and our scholars care about us. And so, yourself, Dr. Maurice Green, who's the head of the Black Doctoral Network, he's been a big part of our community for a long time. And thousands of Black scholars are part of the Black Doctoral Network. My wife is a member as well. So we are moving. The revolution is happening. It's just not being televised. But I can tell you, we are building for the next generation, and people like Dr. Watts are a part of that. So thank you, man. It was great to see you. When you write a book or something, you got a book in the works? Anything you thinking about
Um,
doing, or is that further
Not like
down the
my
line?
mother. I have a bunch of publication research posts, but I have a book coming soon.
Okay, okay. Hey,
I
man, I tell you when it comes out, I'm about the first copy, and then I'm gonna go on the internet
appreciate
and
it.
yell and scream about it. Yeah, man. Yeah. So, all
Also,
right. So,
please, y'all, I just before we go to the point that Dr. Watkins just made, when you hear him talk about asking you all to participate in the survey about the financial psychology and financial trauma, I'm making my own personal appeal to you all that please, if you haven't already, participate because we are actually doing this. This is real research. It's not for jokes. It's not for fun. Nobody's doing this research. And for
Mhm.
what it's worth, it adds layers of legitimacy to the work that the Black Business School is doing. And when we can actually capture this research in peer-reviewed scientific literature, obviously there's a lot of issues around privileging, this white supremacist colonial point of view when it comes to knowledge building. But I do think that we can't ignore like the systems that we work in. And so, that the data that you all give us by participating in that survey is crucial and instrumental to us being able to scientifically offer to the world these are the way this is how financial trauma is impacting Black people's ability to build wealth. So we're not just pontificating, anecdotal kind of this is what I heard and blah blah blah. We will be able to say scientifically, this is what Black people are saying and sharing with us about their experiences related to financial psychology and trauma. So I just
all
wanted to
right.
add, please, y'all.
No, I'm glad you did. And so, since people are asking about the survey link, I don't have it with me, but I'll text it out
I
to you
will
guys.
actually,
So,
if you give me 2 seconds, I
oh, okay.
will
Well,
I
so
will
he'll
put it
put it
in
in
the
the
chat
chat.
right now, right now.
And also what I'll do is I'll text it out to everybody as well. If you're on the text list for this class, if you're not on the text list, you probably want to join. Text the word morning to the number 87948. So text morning to 87948. And also I want everybody to know if you're coming to the convention, we're doing a lot of different things, everything from real estate to crypto to relationships and family to everything that will help you build a quality life. That's going to be in Atlanta, August 21st through the 24th. We're sold out of the convention this year, unfortunately. So I wish I could invite everybody, but I want to mention for those that are coming, text the word A, B, and C to the phone number 87948, and you'll get notifications on the convention. So text A, B, and C to 87948. And also, Dr. Watts is going to be there as well. And I'm going to get him on a panel. And in addition to that, I just heard from a great brother who is the father of Dallas Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott. As you know, Ezekiel was an Ohio State Buckeye, and he played for the Cowboys. And his father, Stacy Elliott, that's his English name, but we call him Brother Muhammad because he's also been a part of the Nation of Islam. He's going to come to the A, B, and C as well because he has a lot to say about the role of Black fathers, particularly when it comes to mentoring these young men and making sure that they're successful. And so he's seen a lot. I think he's the head of the NFL Fathers Association, and he's a strong believer in fatherhood. So if that's your thing, if that's your jam, then you'll get a chance to meet him at the convention as well. So we're bringing together lots of great people that are doing positive stuff, and because we're going to win, our team will win. We're not here to get second place ever. So thank you, Dr. Watts. Did you got the survey?
Yeah, I put it in there, but apparently I can only give it to the host and panelists. Maybe you could.
Oh, it's all
I could.
good. Don't worry about it. I got you, man. I got you.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
everybody, if you want to participate in the survey, I'm about to share it. I'm going to switch up the share link, and so let me put it there. I'm putting it in there,
yeah.
and I'm gonna put it here for those who are watching outside the Zoom. And by the way, if you want to be invited to the private Zoom, just text the word morning to the number 87948, and I'll send you a link to register for the Zoom. But there you go. So I'm pinning it now. So if anybody wants to fill out that survey, please go ahead. And what I'll do is when I finish up with Dr. Watts, I will leave this Zoom room open for a couple of minutes for those of you that want to grab it and fill it out. This is really important. This is original academic research. This is Black history, y'all, if you want to call it that, right? We got top scholars that are studying the link between your childhood trauma and your financial decision making. And because we've concluded, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Dr. Watts. I've concluded that if we're able to solve the trauma problem and convince a few million of our people that healing is a requirement for a healthy, positive life, that's going to change the black wealth trajectory by trillions, and not just wealth, but all the things that are more important than money. What do you say to that, Dr. Watts?
Yeah, I mean it's true because if we want to talk about healing, there's so many areas, but if we talk about even just thinking about money, the way that we approach money, I mean, you think about like the scripts that we have, the money scripts that we have of thinking about like avoiding money because you think that money is bad or that rich people are greedy. Or you have, because of people not healing from financial trauma, you have avoidance of money, you have money worship, where conversely that people believe that money is more important than anything else, and that is the only thing that's going to give you happiness. And then you have like the John Henryism and workaholism that also wears down on your well-being because you start to worship money over everything else. Then there's money vigilance, right? Where people believe that you have to be frugal and you can't spend your money in any way, and that becomes compulsive and also wears you down because now you're always anxious about money. And all of these ways that we have unhealthy relationships with money is due to the trauma that we've experienced growing up, and that's why in the survey we have the ACEs scale, items from the adverse childhood experiences, because there's a direct link between your experiences as a child related to trauma and how in your relationship and beliefs about money. Um, and of course, that shows up again if we, to the conversation that we were having a minute ago, if you understand money being a metaphor or reflective of how we relate to each other, then that, you can still see the connections there as far as how the way we did have a distrust of money. We don't trust each other as Black people. The way that we have money avoidance or, we avoid building partnerships with other Black people. I think that we have to talk about how the trauma, it's not just a trauma of racism as far as it being directed at us, but also part of the results of that racist socialization that we've had is that we don't trust each other. And you talk about this all the time, how we'll be more likely to go and get into a partnership with someone who's white and trust this person as an expert and as someone who knows they're doing because they're white before we'll see someone else who has maybe 2 times more experience, but because they're a Black person, you're like, "Oh, I don't know if I should put my money in, maybe that's not a safe space." And also because we likely don't even have the infrastructure built. So of course I would trust a JP Morgan or or Bank of America because now they're a reputable institution because they have dominated the space of trust, right? And people believe that these are I can work with you. But then it's like when you have like Black partnerships and Black institutions that are building, it's really hard to build because white people aren't necessarily going to patronize you to begin with. So then you're relying on the Black community to do so at least. And then Black people are like,
Mm. Well,
I don't know.
do you remember did you ever go through Bayesian priors, like Bayesian statistics by chance in your
Oh, like what
uh
SEMs, like statistic equation, structural equation modeling.
that's part of it, but more so y'all might have called it something different. I know y'all take a ton of stats classes, but I remember Bayesian statistics was interesting to me because basically, to summarize it really talked a lot about how your preconceived expectations can impact how you interpret new information, right?
Yes.
Like if I think that if I walk up to you and I think and in my mind I say, oh, he's a black man, he's probably a criminal. And
Yes.
let's say you say, "Hey, brother, how are you doing this morning?" I might be like, "Well, wait a minute, hold up. Why are you asking me how I'm doing today? Like, what you mean, good morning,
Yeah, or
right?"
you want something from me? Or you trying to take something from me? Either way, like.
Right, right. My trust is already fragile. So what that does is that creates a small margin of error for you. You say one thing wrong, I'm out. Right. And
Mhm.
like people will do that in relationships, right? You have people that first time they see a red flag, they're gone. Or business relationships. First time I see you mess up one time, you show up late to the meeting. I'm cutting everything. I get triggered. That's a great term, right? And that trauma
Confirmation
can lead to
bias.
those triggers and trauma responses and everything else, right? Whereas on the other hand, let's say I really trust you. Let's say that I have a tremendous amount of respect and well I do. I respect you and I just admire your work and everything else. You could say the exact same thing as the other guy And no matter what you say, it's going to take a lot of mess ups for me to lose that faith in you because in my head, I have this preconceived expectation. And I think that everyone should think about this in terms of how we look at each other and how others look at us. It's really hard for black people to build institutions. Take it from a guy who's trying to do this, right? With the black business school. It's hard to do that because you really are on eggshells. Because you mess up one time, it's like, oh, there those that's why I don't mess with Negroes because they're. Whereas, it could be if it's like, I don't know, some white institution, University of Idaho or something, right? They mess you up 1,000 times or whatever, and you still don't lose that faith in their ability to exist as an institution, right? So a lot of times, when we have these preconceived beliefs that okay, black people they don't run institutions, they're supposed to work for institutions. The black man ain't supposed to be the boss, he's supposed to be the employee. He's not, he's never going, the black woman ain't supposed to be the damn landlord, she's supposed to be the one struggling to pay the rent. It
And
takes time
therefore,
for
you
our
will never
brain.
do it. And then you won't do it. Not only do you not see other black people as being, you don't see your own self script, your own schema of yourself as a black person, therefore translates to that I could never do that. Just as much
Right.
as I don't believe that you can do it, I therefore don't believe that I can do it. So who's gonna do it?
Right, right. So rather than being a business owner, I'm gonna go just become a rapper or a basketball player
Or just
or a
work for the
comedian.
business owner. I can be the I can be the executive, the highest level executive working for the business owner. But I can't be the person running the show. I'm not supposed to do that.
Mm, mm. Well, that goes back to that economic self-esteem that we were just talking about yesterday. You have to really be thoughtful about how you view yourself. And I would encourage everybody stop being so caught up in how other people look at you and ask yourself, how do you look at you? You know, um, like for example, I know I'm not perfect, but I know I ain't stupid. So you could call me stupid and it's not gonna offend me. I don't care. It's not accurate. It's like going up to a man who's 7 feet tall and saying, "I think you're a midget." He's gonna walk right past you, right? So
Well, you
love
also
yourself.
belong to a community of black people who
Mm,
affirm that you are intelligent. So it's not just you
that
saying,
too.
I believe I'm intelligent. I have a bunch of support to back up the fact that I'm not the only person who thinks this, right? Going back to having a sense of belonging, right? Like I know
Mm.
that I'm intelligent, but I have an abundance of people who have demonstrated that they also believe and trust in my intelligence, hence the Black Business School, hence the All Black National Convention. So now you can easily say, you can think whatever you want about me. I have enough evidence in my life to point to me something different.
Well, and one thing I'll say too, Dr. Watts is, um, I had to believe in it before I even was able to create it. Like even when nobody cared about a damn thing I had to say, I had to just commit to this idea that I mean, I felt like I had to be a lone wolf for a long time. You know what I mean? Like just in terms of just saying, okay, I don't care what the rest of the world is doing. This is what I want to do, and that there was a ritual involved with that. Repetition. So really patterning the subconscious mind to be able to grab onto something. Because sometimes, and this is really true for anybody out here that's starting a little business or trying to do something that's hard, something that your relatives haven't done, you have to be that first person to see that vision. That's where financial consciousness does come into play. That consciousness part of it is being able to really meditate on what reality you want to create and being committed to that, even when there's no evidence that it's even going to work and no support anywhere. And so what did happen in my journey was once I sort of created certain things and manifested, then people were like, oh, you know what I mean? Like I have relatives that literally thought what I was doing was a joke, that I was just some crazy radical black man running his mouth. And then they come to the convention and they
Like,
see all
oh,
these
this is a
people. They're
real
like,
organization.
yeah,
People
they're like,
actually participate.
I'm like, I told you, Negro. But still though, it's cool though, right? I think, and I love you. I love what you're doing for this, man, because I just think all of us have to have a certain degree of radicalism, bust out of the barriers. Like a lot of those barriers, they're not really created by other people. They're maintained by you.
Yes.
The barrier exists because you believe in it, not because your cousin said it or your mama said it and everything. I mean, I get it, that matters, but really the person that really controls that cage is you.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I love Dr. Claude Anderson actually, and you were talking about pouring into people, like I have his back to the end because he poured into me when I was a young scholar. I think I was about your age when I first met him. Um, is he really helped me understand that it's okay to be a black man and go out here and push
Yeah.
some boundaries a little bit. You know, he used that word radical in particular. And I can tell you the greatest scholars and thinkers in history typically were people that were radical, that ruffled a couple of
You had to
feathers.
be, right? You had
Yeah,
to.
you got to change the mold. And that's what you're doing. You're changing the mold. You're a rich social work professor, which I'm
You
sure you
gotta
got a lot of
come on
haters for
now.
that.
Come on
I ain't
now.
gonna tell nobody though. I'm not gonna tell nobody. But because you've embraced a lot of thinking that is transformative, and you're gonna mentor a lot of people, man. So I have a lot of respect for you for that.
And also, lastly, I know we keep doing this, like one more thing,
That's
but
okay. That's all
I
right.
will say that just as much as you brought up the example about, your relationship with Dr. Claude Anderson, uh, you know, I don't do this much. Like you don't see me on YouTube with a bunch of interviews, blah 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 blah. Like that's just not something I'm genuinely interested in. And even I remember when you asked me to do it, I was like, okay, because but to the point is like if there was a person that I would go out of my comfort zone and have this conversation and put myself out there, it would be a mentor like you because while I have not had like I've not interacted with you personally as far as like I don't call you on the phone and ask you for advice, blah blah blah. But I to this day I always credit everything that I've learned when it comes to finances and money has been from you and the Black Business School by extension. I've been in classes in the Black Business School since like 2016, 2017. I've been in the Forex, options
Wow.
trading, real estate courses. I've been doing the money in the morning since you started it. So it's just kind of like I actually have friends who laugh. They always point and say because of our similar kind of trajectory as far as like academia and being black men, I have friends who laugh and say, "Boy, it's just you when you get older." So it's like literally, right? So you've been the mentor in my head, like remotely. But my point is the same way how you feel that way about Dr. Claudia Anderson. I just want to also make sure that you get your flowers while you're here, right? That you are doing
Wow.
amazing work and you are impacting people. You were so gracious to give me all these accolades about, my success professionally and my intelligence. But man, I got so much of it from following you. So you definitely.
Wow, man. Wow, that I'm very touched by that. And I'm always open to have another son, man. So welcome to the family, brother. That means a lot. You know, this is great. And I want to say I love all of you all as well. And I see your great comments in the chat and support this brother. You know, follow, pay attention to what he's doing. He's doing great work. I know a lot of you, some of you are scholars, some of you are attorneys, some of you are truck drivers, whatever it is that you do, be excellent at it and add investing as part of your strategy. And because wealth is not an optional thing, wealth building is a requirement because that's part of what it means to be black. So God bless you all, everybody, and thank you again, Dr. Watchman. I got to bring you back. It looks like everybody loves you here, and he will be at the All Black National Convention, so you get a chance to meet him. And so don't forget if you want to be on the text list to get notified when we meet in the morning, just text the word morning to the phone number 87948. Text morning to 87948. You can also visit drboyceelevate.com. We'll send you some free information as well.